sometimes when you apply for jobs in Germany, you have to hand in your application via email, right? And you've probably been wondering about the things that you need to keep in mind when you send in your application. And there are just a few things that you need to pay attention to. I think once you've understood the whole thing, it's very easy to keep this in mind, and you can even, keep a draft of your email and make use of it the next time you send out a job application. So it's pretty easy, and I'll share my screen with you to show you an example. And I think after watching this video, you'll be all set and ready to send out your applications. And I hope, of course, that they will be successful. And if you want to increase your success rate, or if you're just, thinking about looking for a job in Germany, then I think this is the right YouTube channel. We cover everything about, lives of internationals here in Germany, about job search, about everything you need to keep in mind about, work in Germany. So take a look at our YouTube channel after watching this video, of course, and make sure that you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications. And yeah, don't miss out on any of our future videos. But let's return to this topic we're covering today. I'll share my screen with you, and I've prepared a bit of an example. I think that's always, that always makes it easier to understand. So I hope you can see my screen. And the first thing I think when drafting an email is to, of course, get the email address right. I think you've all got that covered. And then you have a subject line in your email. And I've used an artificial person we are always or often using. We've called her Ana Cordero, and she is an applicant for an IT project manager position. So in the subject line, it's very important to include your full name, because sometimes when you hand in an application, specifically with bigger companies, the data goes into a kind of applicant tracking system or some kind of automatic tool, or a tool which routes your application to the right person. So it's important to clearly state your name. That also makes it easier for people to find your email later on. And then, very important, I think that's the most important thing, include the title of the position you are applying for. That's really important to make sure that your application ends up with the right person, because very often they do have several recruiters in place, right? And they have to make sure that it goes to the person in charge. So include the title of the position you're applying for and the job ID. So if there is any job ID stated in the job ad, then make sure to include it. That'll also make it much easier. And then if there's a kind of source, like here, I've used our Mitra page because we have a great job board there, which you can also check out, by the way. So if you found a job there that you find interesting, you can refer to it as a source. That'll also, make it easier for the system to keep track of your application. Then you need a very short text. And here I think applicants often have a confusion, of at least the candidates I do talk to, about what exactly to include in this email. And you do have a long text in your cover letter, right? And this text is different from what you include in the email. So if you're sending along a cover letter, you don't need to include the full text of your cover letter in your email. It's sufficient to just have a very brief email stating the position you're applying to, and of course your contact data and so on. And just keep it brief. I think that's the most important thing. Make sure that there are no spelling mistakes, of course, just like your job application, it has to look good, right? But you don't need to include the full text because it's all there in your application documents, so you don't need that. So here I've just included an example addressed to Mrs. Müller. Often you find the name of the HR contact in the job ad, right? And Müller is a very common last name in Germany, by the way. Of course, if there's no name, you can also just write "Dear Hiring Manager." That's also sufficient. And then just mention the title of the position you're applying to, the source. Also here, specifically important, if you had any kind of personal contact with them, refer to that. Maybe you've already spoken to them on the phone because you had some questions, or maybe you met at a conference somewhere. So make sure that you include the source of your contact, or the source where you learned about this whole job ad. And by the way, I think published a LinkedIn video once where I talked about LinkedIn LinkedIn messages, and I'll link this for you up here because I think that's quite similar. So if you have any kind of personal reference, that's always a good add-on to include in your email or LinkedIn messages and so on. So make sure to include this kind of source, and then you can always say something like, your availability, or just encourage them to reach out to you if they have any questions. And then something which I think is quite important is your contact data. That's also something people often tend to forget. So you can include any kind of online profiles that you find relevant. Also, several of them here. I've just included a LinkedIn profile, but of course, you can also include others. Then the phone number where they can reach you, I think that's specifically important to make it very easy for them to reach out to you, and your email ID. And then if you want to, you can also add your address. I've not done this here, but specifically if you're an international candidate who's already living in Germany, it could probably be helpful to show that you're based in Germany. So you could just add this here below the email. You could add your full address. That would be something I think nice to do. It's not mandatory though, because the data is of course also included in your cover letter and your CV. Hopefully, if you've followed my recommendations on CV and cover letter writing at least. And then, yeah, last but not least, include the cover letter and the CV. If you're wondering about the file type, watch the video that I'm linking for you up here, and also at the end of the video where I talk about file types and what kind of file type to use. Because I'm not going into detail about this in this video because I don't want to make a very long video. So make sure that you watch it if you are not sure about the file type that you need to use. Include your CV and your cover letter, and also any kind of additional attachments that the company asked for or that you want to include. And then I think you're ready to go. Make sure that you do a final check, get the subject line right, of course, get the email ID right. And by the way, just make sure that you use kind of, let's say, professional email ID for yourself as well. It would be good if it includes your full name, or maybe a short version of your name. Sometimes I see email addresses that are a bit awkward or kind of fun email IDs. I think that's not appropriate for sending out a job application. So just make sure that to get that right. I think there are a lot of options out there. Include a very brief text with a clear reference to the job you're applying for, your contact data, and then your attachments, and then you're ready to go. And then you just need to hit the send button, and that's it. So I hope this was helpful for you. Leave me your comments. Also, if you have any additional questions related to this topic or other topics, feel free to comment here. I'm always very thankful for feedback and notes. And also for people who share their experiences. I think the more we share, the more we can learn from each other. And yeah, looking forward to your comments, and take a look at our other videos, and see you soon. All the best for your job search.